Separate the real from the fake. See, we got to get back to love. If we get back to love, then that's when we're going to get back to us.
It seems like it's never enough. And what do you say when you're...
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of People Empowerment, where we would strive to change the conditions in our community. Today, once again, as always, we have a very exciting guest, and as you well know, this is election season, voting season, political season, and so with that in mind, we have here today special guest Antoine Thompson. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here.
I'm very excited and honored to be here.
Mr. Busy, Mr. Busy. Very good. Okay, so we're going to get right down here to it. Mr. Thompson is here to let us know that he is running for the 141st District Assembly person. Is that correct? Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I am very excited to be here today. The residents of the 141st District have an opportunity on September 9th to vote for a candidate to represent them in Albany. The State Assembly is the lower house in the New York State Legislature. Okay. I often say it's like the U.S. Senate and U.S. Congress or House of Representatives in Washington. So in the state, some people may remember I was in the upper house, which was the State Senate. Right, now I'm running in the lower house, which is the State Assembly. The district includes much of the east side of Buffalo, Allentown, a little portion of Allentown, a little portion of Parkside, and a portion of North Buffalo. So it's all contained within the city of Buffalo, and I'm so excited to be back running for office. Over the last couple of years while I was not in office, I've helped a number of people get elected to positions. I've been involved with a number of community causes as well, from school discipline reform, trying to break the pipeline to prison in the Buffalo schools, to helping the mayor of new mayor of Rochester get elected, to helping a number of people get elected here in Buffalo, from the school board to the mayor of Buffalo.
So you've been busy.
I've been very busy, very busy.
Now, Mr. Thompson, also, you recently, until a few days ago, were the executive director of BETC, that's the Buffalo Educational and Training Center?
Yeah, Buffalo Employment and Training Center, BETC, some people call it Betsy. I was the executive director of that program, and the primary purpose of BETC is for employment and training. And so I really like that. But my passion is working for the people, not for the politicians. So I quit an $80,000 a year job. Thankfully, God has blessed me with the opportunity to have additional sources of income to fall back on during this next 70 days.
Okay, so now you've quit the job, executive director of BETC. You're running for office for the people. When you were senator, you were in the upper half, and now as assembly person, you'll be in the lower half of the lawmakers, we should say, for New York State.
Yeah.
So now, could you explain to the people exactly kind of how the money works? You talk about the money coming. I heard you yesterday, Buffalo billion. Explain to us how that money would funnel to us, the citizens, through the assembly where you'd get into position.
Yeah, well, first, the assembly is like the House of Representatives in Washington. There's a greater number of members of the House or the State Assembly, and the State Assembly, the State Senate has fewer people, so by each house gets the same amount of money.
Oh, okay.
So you get more in the Senate because you're splitting the money up with fewer people. Now, the difference between I was in the majority in the Senate for 2 years, I was only in the State Senate for 4 years, but 2 of those years we were in the majority, meaning the Democrats controlled the State Senate, so I was able to bring home more resources. The Democrats in the Assembly have been in control since the 70s. So Assembly people were able to bring home resources. Some do it a little more effectively than others. Well, so my job will be, as when I was on the Common Council for 5 years, and in the State Senate, 2 of the 4, we were in the majority, so I was able to bring home a lot of resources. Okay, well, so that's what I want to do on housing, jobs,
well,
small
that's what I'm
business.
about to ask you, because you're saying bring home the resources, bring home the money. Explain it to us. Explain it to the layman like myself. What do you mean bring home
Well, right now, for example, there is a program that they call the Buffalo Billion. It's $1 billion. It's already coming to Buffalo.
Right.
And half of it's been allocated.
Half of it already.
About a $500 million, I'm told, has already been allocated for various different things. And none of that money is really being used to fix housing in the inner city, fix roads in the inner city, rebuild some of the commercial districts on Hurdle, on Main Street, on Jefferson, Broadway, et cetera, throughout the 141st district. So the 141st, most of our money in this part of the district, in this part of the city, is primarily going to the medical campus, which is nice, but we need money on the ground so that there's money to train people, there's money to help businesses grow right in the 141st, that there's some structural investment in housing, small business development, small business corridors, things of that nature are not happening to transform. This is a campaign about helping to transform the neighborhood conditions, the schools, and the lives of people in the 141st district, and to offer a vision for change.
All right.
So the Buffalo Billion is really, it's a good thing. However,
depends on how it's going to be utilized,
and it's not being,
it's
not getting to people on the ground.
So now let's talk about it getting to people on the ground, people in the inner city, people in the neighborhoods. Now, let's say perhaps you were to secure even 50 million of the Buffalo Billion, specifically designated to inner city projects. What specifically would that entail? I mean, how do people still become a part of that? It's still
I think
unclear.
There are a few things that are important. Number one issue that I am concerned about is if we can find money to tear down houses, 1 and 2 family homes in the city of Buffalo, we need to find money to fix those houses.
Yes.
And when you call Ellicott CDC, you call Flair, Gloria J. Parks Community Center, Kim Bailey NHS, those are the ones that primarily serve the 141st Assembly District. Most of the time, people are waiting 2 and 3 years to get funding to fix their houses. And if we have $1 billion for Buffalo coming and it's already being spent, why can't we say to people at the regional level and at the state level, we need to make sure some of this money goes to help rebuild some of the neighborhoods, to fix some of these houses. Every house doesn't need to be demolished. And if it takes 2 to 3 years to rehab a house to get money, but it only takes 2 years to tear it down, we need to change that policy. Additionally, I believe that we need to fight to make sure that some of those resources from that Buffalo Billion go to help rebuild at least 2 commercial districts. My vision is to say, they have to do RFPs and they have to allocate money for different things. Why not take 100 million or 200 million out of $1 billion and invest in neighborhood initiatives,
That's it, folks.
Commercial districts,
right, folks.
Housing.
That's
Do
it.
you know what? Say for example, we took
Not to cut you off. Wait. Keep that in mind. Not to cut you off. Listen. Let's keep the people in mind. You're watching People Empowerment. You can go to the website and you can see this program and other programs that are on the website. You go to People Empowerment at AOL.com, and you can leave your messages. And you can also go to People Empowerment ApolloMediaCenter.com and watch this show and other shows and get this information, which it will be on there. Again, now I hate to cut you off. Sometimes I do that because you got so much information you want to throw it at me. I got to chop into it and slow you down a little bit, and so we can break it down so people can get the clear understanding. Okay, so don't mind me cutting in because that's what I do. Anyway, Mr. Thompson. Now, okay, so now that we say we do get 100 million, 200 million out of that $1 billion you're saying, okay, and then we can get it here to the neighborhoods. Now, how do we get the men? The black men in the community, the black men that look like me, how do we get those jobs in their hands? Because there's work going on right now next to True Bethel Baptist Church, okay, right next door to it, the lot. There's buildings going up. It's incredible. It's going up so quick. And there's all white men working on this project. I want to be clear to the city of Buffalo. Right there next to True Bethel, across the street from the building that just went up, there's all kind of construction going on, and there's nothing but white men. I've been by there twice, 2 times, and I don't see one black face on it. but it's in the black community, and again, it's a shame. So can you talk about that for a minute?
Well, I don't know what's happening at True Bethel, but what I will say is this, is that
because if we get the work going on in the community, but we still not doing it, it still, excuse me, but it still doesn't enhance our lives.
it's the reason why I'm running is because I want to help put people back to work by any means necessary, okay? Once the person is drug-free, whatever they need to do to get clean, to get the skills that they need, get all the support system in place, we must make sure that people get a chance to work. In this district, the 141st Assembly District, 1 out of 3 people either live in poverty, are unemployed, or underemployed. And there's no plan. I want you, the folks to understand, and your viewers to understand, that there's no real plan to put people in this district to work. The organizations
in the 141st district, there's no plan to put us to work.
No plan.
Well, who is the assembly person that has control of the 141st district? Who's that person?
So what I want to say is this: within my first 100 days, being in office, I want to assemble the Urban League, ELC, the Department of Labor, It Takes a Village, Outsource Center, a couple of the colleges, some of the faith organizations, other community organizations together, and develop a strategy, all right, to put people to work and have them meet regularly. And we have to also look at existing state and local programs that deal with putting people to work and make sure they work for us. In addition to that, there are laws that are on the books that are not really enforced. There was just a report that came out on one of the station and one of the public media outlets about utilization for both business and workforce for the state. There's work that needs to be done to make sure that the laws that are on the books are enforced. It doesn't matter if we have laws if they're not enforced. And so what I'm saying to people is that my number one issue is putting the people of the 141st Assembly District to work.
So even if you do say your idea is to put the people to work, okay, well, if the laws aren't being enforced right now, then what's going to change just because you become the 141st District Assemblyman? What's going to change if they're not being enforced right now?
Because there are things that you can do in terms of rallying the community, meeting with, holding press conferences, rallies, pushing for enforcement, requesting, holding public hearings, doing letters to the editor. I own a media publication. I can write about it every month if I have to. We can put it on Facebook and create the climate that says something needs to be done. And what I'm saying to you, people have said to me the last 4 years, they want the old Antoine back. The Antoine that's going to shake it up, that's going to say, folks aren't working, laws are not being enforced, we are spectators in the process, we're not getting our fair share.
That's right.
And I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do that. You know, the educational rate for graduation in Buffalo is less than 30% for black males, less than 50% for white males. We're all in this boat together if you live in Buffalo.
That's it.
You know, we're all suffering.
That's
Some
it.
may be delusional and believe that they're better off, but by and large, we're all drowning. And people need a hand up and not a handout.
So let me get this clear. Once elected, you will effectuate some type of change where the policies of minority hiring, minority contractors, minority workforce, that they are fulfilled, and to keep an oversight somehow, create some type of oversight.
So one of the things that is not happening locally, whether it's projects that are funded by the state, is that there's not enough compliance staff in these regional offices. So what happens if you're on a SUNY project, meaning State University of New York, there's like 3 people covering most of the state. It's impossible to make sure that people.
Absolutely impossible.
And if you look at DHCR, I think they may have 1 person for all of West of New York doing compliance for diversity and inclusion on all these projects. It's just simply not. And what's happened is that when the governor's father was in, office, there were more compliance staff working for the state.
Antoine, I got to
Now-
ask you a question.
Yeah.
I got to cut in. I got to ask you a question. You talk about compliance. Let's keep it real. I got to ask you a question.
Yes.
You ride around this city. You see all the construction going on. You see what's going on downtown. Do you see us?
I see some rays of hope, but there's more work that needs to be done. You know, when you're working on a project, people come in different phases. Sometimes minority contractors get work and they sub it out to somebody that's not of color. There could be a lot of different scenarios. I will say this, is that there is not a comprehensive plan to put people to work. Remember, Buffalo's one of the fourth poorest city in America. In the 141st, there's a higher concentration of poor people, poor, unemployed, and underemployed. So it's critical. Jobs is 80% of our problem. You add education to it, you get to 90%. Okay? So 90% of the problems can be resolved with education and training. 10% is all those other things.
Hey, listen, let me.
That's why I'm saying we gotta put job, and people don't want to deal with it
gotta
because
do it. Yeah.
it's a measurable thing. And if we want accountability, everyone's treating the problem, but no one's preventing the problems. So we have less than 40 people in the city in various agencies that deal with placing people to work. But we have hundreds of cops, we have hundreds of counselors, we have hundreds of educators, but in terms of training people for work and putting people in jobs, that is very small.
Listen,
We have to shift.
I want to talk to
You
you. as far
understand
as
what I'm saying? We got to shift.
Well, not only do we got to shift as far as those training programs go, and listen, let me just please remember that if you'll remind me, please, training programs. I want to talk to you about training programs. I just want to cut in and share with the audience one thing right quick. You know, I'm part of an organization over at Gateway Community Center, which is the old YMCA over on Ferry, 347 East Ferry. They're trying to keep that program open right now. They're trying to get usage up. The building is free. The facility is free. Everything going on in that building there is free, and the community doesn't know about it. It's right in our community. And the community doesn't know about it. Listen, they have free martial arts lessons there, free self-defense lessons, street self-defense, fitness classes there. Community don't know about it. It's free. Right now it's free. They have free music classes, free drums, free instruments. They even have free swimming over there, free gym and fitness. So it's incredible what's going on over there at Gateway Longview, the old YMCA, and people don't know about it. So I had to take a time out to flash that across the screen, and you'll see it periodically. Have my producers flash it across the screen as we talk. So even though the conversation may not be about that, I want to let you know why that's up there, because this is a program that's free, Antoine, offered it to the community free. So you got those little bad kids that need some discipline, bring them there. Let the people at the program teach them some discipline in the midst of them having fun, punching and kicking. You know what I mean? Some discipline. So anybody wants to come down there, it's for kids, it's for you bring your family, the whole family. Come out, come train together, work out together at Gateway Longview, okay? So now we're going to get back to what we was talking about, but I remembered, I don't even need the cue. We was talking about job training programs. And so what I like to say to you about job training programs is, I've learned from the people out in the street that thing about job training programs, they go to these job training programs, they still don't get jobs. So they said the one thing that would keep them going and more interested in them is if they were paid job training programs.
I agree.
Why couldn't they be paid job training programs? Why not?
Let me say this. Yes, that can happen. It needs to become a priority. The challenge that we have is that not enough people are championing this particular issue. So I look at the Department of Labor, I look at Outsource Center, I look at a number of these places where we provide job training and job placement services. They need an advocate, and I want to be that advocate for these organizations. It's critically important that we have an advocate. I want to be that advocate. Yes, providing stipends and financial support is possible, because if we're asking people to lay down your guns, if we're asking people
talk about it,
asking people to put down their marijuana and their heroin and all those other things and become a productive citizen, we need to provide greater financial support. Now, one of the things that I strongly support is year-round youth employment.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because during the summer months, young people get off the street. But what happens is in August 15th or the end of August, kids lose their summer youth employment and they're back to hustling again. That can change.
Back to hustling.
That
and
needs
that
to
can
change.
That does need to change, and you'll champion that.
Yes,
see,
I support.
That's what I'm talking about, people.
There's a program called Step and Upward Bound, and there's a few other programs like that. They provide a supplemental income for young people. I mean, they get a little part-time stipend, but they have to get tutoring, cultural and academic enrichment, and they get a little stipend that keeps them off the street and makes them want to go to school. And they go to a regular school, and then they go to a college campus, and they get leadership development, character development, academic enrichment, cultural enrichment, recreational stuff. And I think that needs to be afforded to in other students as well. So that's why I want year-round youth employment, where we can hire 3,000 or 4,000 kids part-time during the school year, and tie it in with some stipends.
And so again, we got that Buffalo billion. Let's use some of that money for just such a program, because the bottom line is we're trying to get these teens off the streets. We're trying to get them, like he said, to put down the guns. We need for them to have something constructive to do, to put some type of money in their pockets so they don't have to resort to the street, to crime.
I've had two cousins. One was around my age. Another one was 21 that succumbed to the streets of Buffalo in the last year. I helped start the Stop the Violence organization that started in my office when I was on the Common Council in the Maston District. I brought the SNUG program, which is Guns Spoke Backwards, to Buffalo. That was a state Senate initiative that I helped start. And I helped lead the fight to bring the homicide unit back to Buffalo when they had disbanded that a few years ago.
Really?
I'm very passionate about crime and helping to stop crime because of the fact that a bullet doesn't always have someone's name on it. And it does so much to bring down property values, to destroy families, destroy communities. And we don't have a state-run anti-drug campaign. That's one of the things I want to push, is to have a state-run anti-drug use campaign. Because when people don't use drugs, then drug dealers don't have customers. We have a campaign for not smoking. We have a campaign for HIV, campaign for other things, but we don't have a statewide campaign for not using drugs. And that's why I say we need to have a statewide campaign. Drugs, don't use them.
You say that you're the advocate for the people. You're the people's advocate. By
That's
the way,
right.
This is People Empowerment, the people's advocate, which is my position also. But you say you're the people's advocate.
Yes, sir.
But also you just clearly said to the audience out there, the people, that you need other people to stand up and challenge the cause. That we need to come back together like in the days of Martin Luther King, the days of Medgar Evers. You know what I mean? That we need to come out and we need to rally and we need to march and we need to unify. Because as we keep complaining, as people keep complaining, nothing is done. And now people even use the drive to even come out and do anything but complain. How do you change that? How do you get people the gumption, the motivation to come out and even vote for you in September? How do you do it?
Well, what I've said to people is that I've heard some of the frustration when I was at BETC for a year and a half, people complaining that the organization prior to me coming wasn't out doing enough outreach, and it still needs to do more. I heard the complaints when I was on the Common Council, and they were going to put a fishing pond in Martin Luther King Park, and I stood with the community to stop that when it was 70% done, and made sure now that we have water in the pool. Is it perfect? No. And when I get in the assembly, I'm going to get more money so that we can expand that pool so it has water throughout the pool, all right? But that's going to cost money, but we can do it if we stand up. And I have a history of standing up, taking on a tough issue. Right now, everyone is talking about a downtown stadium. I was out there 10 years ago saying we need a stadium in downtown Buffalo. I was ridiculed, I was called crazy, etc. It would never happen. But now we're at a point where it just might happen. But I had the courage to get petitions. I was on the front cover of Business First magazine. I was in a lot of newspapers, and people said, he must be nuts. Because when you have the conviction and you stand with the people and you're not afraid to take on tough issues, when I stood up for the homicide unit, the former commissioner at that time, Rocco Dina, he went up one side of me and down the other. But you know what? When they looked at the data and the number of unsolved homicides at that time, and there's still work to be done in that area, he said he put together a commission, and within 30 days, they brought the homicide unit back to Buffalo.
Okay, Mr. Thompson, in these final few minutes, let me just ask you this right quick. As senator, you had your first 4 years as senator. You ran for senator again a second term and you lost. Okay? Third term, and you lost. Okay? Now, what have you learned from that? You say this, people want the old Antoine back, the old Antoine from years ago. Well, what have you learned in your hiatus? What have you learned since you've been out of politics that's going to help you?
Well, a couple of things.
Give me some truthful.
A couple of things. In 2010, when I lost that race by a couple hundred votes, I usually am hands on deck making sure we get out the vote. Mm-hmm. And what I learned is that one of the things I've learned is that if you're like a little CEO, if no one else shows up, you got to make sure the job gets done. Okay. You can't delegate everything to staff, and some things you can't outsource. Okay. The other thing is that you have to make sure that what you do in Albany, that people on the ground see the results and that you communicate that with them. The third thing is that when issues come up that you think they're totally unbelievable, mm-hmm. and they're in the press, you have to vigorously oppose them. That's how when Bill Clinton, who lost as governor, he was a governor in Arkansas, he lost an election, and he said from that moment on, anything that comes against him, he will, if someone said that his socks were red and his socks were really blue, he would make that person uncle up and say that those socks were not red, they were actually blue. So and I used to let stuff like that fly, mm-hmm. and just say, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's not true. People know.
So now it's hands-on.
It's hands-on.
Antoine in the street.
Yeah.
Antoine talking to the people. Antoine fighting to rally the people. That's what it is now? Visual, touchable, attainable. Is that going to be you now?
That's the way it is, brother.
And then what happens when you're electable? Are you still going to be attainable? Can
Absolutely.
we still reach you?
Absolutely.
Can the people still come to you?
Absolutely. One of the things I do with one of my magazines that I own, Next Level, is that I could pay someone to distribute it, and I do have people that help me distribute, but I distribute half of it every month because it helps me go in the shops, talk to people, hear their stories, hear their frustrations. It keeps me grounded on a regular basis. And so I like that. In addition to that, I have to continue to do those town meetings. That was one of the things, and I think what also
finally, I got to cut you off again. Finally, we ain't got but one. You got 30 seconds to say the last thing you want to say to these people before I close out. You know I got to close out. Come on, Antoine, say the last thing you're going to say to them.
I want to say that my number one issue is putting people to work. 1 out of 3 people in the 141st district are either living in poverty, are underemployed, or unemployed. We need a plan to fix that. In addition to that, if we can find money to build condos downtown and loft apartments and provide tax credits for development, then our senior citizens should be able to get state resources to fix that leaky roof. People should be able to find greater resources to become a first-time home buyer. And individuals that need to get those homes repaired need to get more resources from the state. There's over $400 million that goes to housing initiatives in the state. We need to rebuild the 141st district.
I got to cut him off like a good politician. He keeps on finishing his last point. That's great. I got no problem with this. But I'll tell you, we're going to have Antoine back here. Hopefully, we're going to have his opponent on here too. But until then, this is Nate Boyd from People Empowerment telling you, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention.
Yes.
Thank you, Antoine.
Thank you.
Coming in. That was very informative.
Thank you.
Very nice.